of Tierrion's kings, a charge from King Mahala to his son Marahane, given in the 67th year of the Virescent age. Listen, my son. Death goes where he pleases. He knows the rich man's bed and knows the corner where the beggar sits. Though I command men to come and go, no order from my high seat will halt death's arrival. Yet let him come. My bones are ready to lie in the ground, for I am weary and long for the company of those who have passed into the dead country before me. My son, remember the houses of Bereseth and Osgollo, for they were the first to respond to my call. Remember also Fenhair's widow, for her husband took a spear for me in battle. But keep a heavy hand on the house of Tierrion, for he refused to come when I rang the bell, and he persuaded many to bow to fear and remain in hiding. Only after we had routed our enemies did he follow us to Tierrion. Therefore, may his line always follow after others, like a servant follows his master. May his sons and daughters be the slaves to those who lead. See to it that none take a title, and that no teeth give sound to their speaking totems. Be wise, my son, and seek counsel from the immortal legender after I am gone. He is bound by vow to serve my line, for I saved him from the enemy's spears as he wept over the slain Osira. He will serve you well, for his word is true, and his knowledge deep. I go to the final gates, but you, my son, remain. So look to Ahatho and work out his justice. Do not deny the poor their bread, and give them a fair ear when they are judged, for your fathers knew hunger and oppression. Before you take the throne, go to the terror vaults in the west, to the caves where we hid during the war. Bring your hands to the stones there. Do not forget the humble place from where we came. An excerpt of the history of King Merifar, taking place in the 100th year of the Virescent age. And Merifar raised 3 pillars in honor of the warriors who had fought at his grandfather's side in the war. 1 for Fenhair, 1 for Osgollo, and 1 for Bereseth. Merifar also raised a pillar for the legender to honor his servitude to Mahala's line. The pillar of Fenhair stood on the east side of the city, for his sons went east after the war and founded their settlement of Eliason, which would become the capital of Patarah once the nation was later established. The pillar of Osgollo stood on the west side of the city, for he went west after the war and founded his settlement of Ebelorna, which would become the capital of Tercia once the nation was later established. The pillar of Bereseth stood on the south side of the city, for he went south after the war and founded his settlement of Berecantum, which would become the capital of Umberia once the nation was later established. The pillar of the legender stood on the north side of the city, for after the war, all of his surviving kin went to the northern sea and sailed far away in search of a place where they could make a settlement of eternal peace. On the day the pillars were raised, the first day of the month of Erthos, there began a celebration to remember the deeds of the war that occurred 100 years before, and King Merifar proclaimed, "Those who remember are blessed by Ahatho, and those who forget are cursed by him." The celebration lasted for the entire month, and came to bear the name Mahala, after the great warrior of mankind, the first king of Tierrion. A message by King Dartahane to his son Dartanon, written in the 162nd year of the Virescent age. My son, you have been away from Tierrion for too many years. End your sojourn in Ebelorna, and return at once, for I grow old, and the people will forget your face and your name if you are gone for much longer. Be swift in your return, for I fear there is one who would take your place. The legender has many who call his name and ask of his counsel. I know that there are those who would have him seated on the throne, and they offer him positions and titles. Though the legender seeks solitude and does not walk the halls of Averut, I do not trust him. He refuses the people's offers, for in his heart there is only one title he desires, and that is of the king. Your mother believes that I am unwell, and I am certain she has told you this in her writings to you. But it is for your inheritance that I do not sleep. My mind grapples with the thought of how to preserve our line. I cannot end the legender's service to our city, for if I did, the people would despise me. The legender must be forgotten. Yet how does one cast away a name? Even my word and power cannot do that. Yet it is your presence here that will keep our loss at bay. Therefore, my son, return now, or risk bowing to another. An excerpt from the history of King Dartahane, taking place in the 164th year of the Virescent Age. In that year, grave robbers intruded into the Underhollow and attempted to loot the resting place of Mahala, yet they were found by the city guard and executed, so that no desecration could again be attempted. King Dartahane appointed the legender to be guardian of the patriarchs, a new title and position, and Dartahane sent the legender below the city, so that he could stand watch over the tombs of the former kings. When Dartahane announced his decision to the people, he said, "Who better to watch over our great father in death than the one who owes him his life?" An excerpt from a message by the dying King Dartahane to his son Dartanon, written in the 168th year of the Virescent Age. When you become king, do not go on pilgrimage to the mountains in the west as our fathers have, for you have already been away for too long. You cannot bring any further risk to our throne. A message from King Dartarael to Monk Olmeld, given in the 207th year of the Virescent Age. In the night I was awakened by a dream of powerful meaning. It seemed as though the winds lifted me from my bedchamber and took me north to the faraway coasts, and there I saw the pagans worshipping their gods of the sea. On the altars lay fish and all manner of marine creatures, but before the heathen knives could gut and drain them, the animals fell from the altars and crawled with all speed back into the sea. Then the sky grew dark, and there came great bolts of lightning, and the lightning smashed the altars and scattered the pagan priests. When the beaches had been purified of the idolatry, a voice like 10,000 peals of thunder came from the sky, saying, "Here is a true alliance to Tierrion, a nation that will worship me, and will aid your city in due time. Therefore, Brother Olmed, you and your disciples must go to the coasts of the north, and teach the people there the way of Ahatho. A sign from him has come. We must take heed." A message from King Dartarael to Monk Olmeld, given in the 209th year of the Virescent Age. Do not preach only to the poor. Though they flock to where you speak, they will not make suitable allies for Tierrion. Seek rather to win the chieftains to our religion. They may be hostile to your words, but it is their position we seek. A message from King Dartarael to Monk Olmeld, given in the 216th year of the Virescent Age. I am pleased to hear that the chieftains are at last receptive to your teachings, and have given you a piece of land to build a temple. Your request for funds has been granted, and I myself will give a portion from my treasure house to help pay for materials and labor. Raise a worthy house for Atho's presence, and may many repentant pagans enter through his doors. A letter from King Osalis to his uncle Ehredt, written in the 396th year of the Virescent age. To my kin of trust and mother's blood, today we laid my king father in his tomb, yet do I grieve. The desert bears more tears for him than I, and although my clothes are black, nothing of my true self mourns him. Only in my writing to you will I confess the ungrieving heart I bear. And so I must confess, for if I do not, a guilt would grow in me like a darkened weed that drives its roots through all my being. My uncle, my counsellor, am I wicked for being so? You know well the story that keeps me from a son's love under his father. Remember when I was very young, when he would not permit me to sit on his lap as other affectionate fathers would do. Rather, he would push me away and tell me that he was not dead yet, that my time on the kingly seat would come. Remember when I laughed, when he would cuff my mouth swiftly and say that only wisdom should come from the mouth of a future king. Although his breath and blood are now forever stilled, he had turned cold long before he died. He was not a man, but a pillar of ice. After we placed my father in his tomb, I was immediately tested by heaven to see if I would not only take up his seat, but his cruelty as well. The test came to me as such. There in the under hollow, we found a man who had long been living in the crypts. He was grey-eyed and gaunt, and his time underground had turned his skin pale like a sick man's. Great was his illness of mind, for he claimed to be one of the immortals and a guardian of the kingly dead. When I saw him, I felt so strongly that heaven had placed this poor man before me, that I could restore him to health and therefore restore my line to kindness. Yet I did not do such a noble thing. Instead, I saw strength in the man's eyes, strength I could not understand, and took it for a threat to the very crown and seat I had inherited. From where my fear and anger came, I do not know, but they came so strongly that I beat the poor man with a rod and cast him from the tombs, telling him to return to the lowly station from whence he came, to suffer among the heaps of rubbish. I had failed heaven's test, and it is forever lost to me. I confess to you with greatest shame that I am my father's son. An excerpt from King Mardakan's Chronicles, written in the 557th year of the Virescent age. The poet Nalius has composed a new song in which I am called the Merciful One, a title I am honoured to bear, but with it I bear more the burden. I cannot plead for every innocent who was bound in the dungeons of foreign lands, as I did for Boktar. Now come the letters from nearly every pit and cell, and especially from the dungeons of Ekadon, where Boktar was held. Some of the criminals who write to me have been sentenced for crime of which I loathe to think, and sadly the multitudes of pleas drown out those of the innocents. Not only do I feel the strain of foreign lands, but also from here in Tierrion. Today a man of pitiful state came before my throne. He called me King Mardakan the Merciful, and asked if I could live up to my name. Then he claimed to be a legend who has been guarding this city since the first kings. Had it not been for his utter humility, I would have had him taken straight away for his madness. So greatly did he believe that Tierrion was his prison, that he begged for me to release him from his service. For proof to his claim of who he was, he formed a fire from a torch in the shape of an osero, and had it fly about the room. Such a trick I have never seen, one that would impress even the jugglers and magicians. Yet I reminded the poor man that real sorcery is punishable by death, and that not even a hint of daemonic work should be found in a man's interest, lest his soul fall into dark ways. Although this man walked away more pitiful than when he arrived, with such high penalties surrounding sorcery, he should be happy he walked away alive. Surely I was merciful, was I not? An excerpt from the history of King Sarwald, taking place in the 726th year of the Virescent Age. It was in that year that King Sarwald fell under a grave illness that turned him mute and brought him to the point of death. No physician or apothecary could cure him, but the monk Manaxis, from the Order of Olmeld in Havamere, had a vision in which Ahatho told him to go down to Tierrion and present a handful of soil before Sarwald. Manaxis did as Ahatho commanded. When Sarwald saw the handful of soil, he understood its meaning and wept. His voice returned to him, and he cried out, "I have coveted another man's land, his fields and his crops. By my power I sought to take it from him, but when I was about to give the command to seize that land, I was struck mute and fell ill. Forgive me, Ahatho, and have mercy on your fool." Manaxis then mixed the soil with water, and had Sarwald drink it. When he drank it, he was cured, and he leapt from his bed and danced in praise to Ahatho. So grateful was Sarwald to the monk that he raised a statue of Manaxis's likeness. The legender pillar was torn down, and the statue was raised in its place, for Sarwald desired to honour Manaxis in a place of prominence, and in the north part of the city, the direction from which the monk had come.